just for just a minute or so. So, like I say, in the video there is an exact kind of representation of the exhibition that we held at University Centre. Because, just to make the point, in June 2009 we organised a photography exhibition where those photographs, in that order, were displayed. Now, like I said, you know, the aim of the exhibition was to basically show your work to a wider audience, see if it had any effect. Basically, what we got was, as it said there, we got 88 people who took part in the research that we did. 88 people were interviewed before they went into the exhibition on some questions I'll talk about in a minute, and then the same questionnaire was emailed a couple of months later. 46 people replied to the second questionnaire, and it was found via something called a statistical test for differences that their views had changed significantly. So, you know, we can be quite confident that, you know, following the exhibition, their views about crime, harm and injustice had changed. Now, looking at the kind of data, looking at the data that we found, this was the, as I say, the 88 people that did take the interview first of all. We had a mixture of male and female. The under 40s and over 40s, again, so, you know, a bit of, you know, sort of like representation there. Not saying it was the most representative sample at all, but, you know, that was what we found. A couple of points that may interest you for other kind of assignments that you're doing and stuff like that. I mean, the first point there was about the level of concern that people have about crime. As you can see quite clearly, you know, you've got 74 people who are either fairly concerned or very concerned about crime. No one who's not concerned at all. So, you know, so there is a high level of concern there in the sample. We also had a strong level of interest in crime. You know, what we've got there, we've got 75 75 out of the 88 classed themselves as having a high level of interest. The community payback question was brought in to try to understand, well, there's a form of punishment these days called community payback, which is very visual. And so that was the reason why this question was included, and it's something we'll develop in some of your other modules. And you can see that 60 out of the 88 had heard of this. I have got to say that the people that went to this exhibition were connected in some way to the university centre. So I'm not going to say it's the most representative sample going, because they were all connected to an educational institute. So like I say, I can't say that it was like a random sample, because like I say, it was influenced by people, they knew people here. Although I've got to say, we did have two people who did come who had no connection to the place at all. They'd read about it in the newspaper and they came along to see what it was about. So it is possible for your assignments to be sort of like put out there, it is possible. CCTV question was another one, and this question here, question 5, it was one of our key questions. There were 3 key questions in the questionnaire. This first one was about levels of harm and whether people believed that, like I say, individuals were prosecuted due to the amount of harm they cause. The video has already shown you that, that one negligent banker can do more harm than 1,000 pickpockets. Yet you all know that it's the 1,000 pickpockets who get prosecuted, it's the 1,000 pickpockets that get clamped down, whereas the banker, different. It's not crime film. It's a different thing. It isn't. It's the same. The harm's the same, In fact, well, it's worse. Last couple of questions was this one here. I'm going to talk about this one in a minute, about intent. Now, as it says there, about if a person causes harm which could have been prevented, it is irrelevant whether or not someone did it intentionally. Again, we're trying to focus in on the harm, not the whether it was intended or not. A question about deterrence, which I'll talk about on another day. And then finally, about a claim that, is quite common, but is it really a crime? Exaggerating on your insurance policy? I don't know. So, like I say, those were there were 3 questions there that we thought summed up people's attitudes towards this type of criminal behaviour. Like I say, the 46 people that got it the second time, we did the test for differences, and we found to what's called a 5% significance level that their views had changed. Now, a 5% significance level means we can be confident on a 95% level of certainty, if you will. So we can say that 95 times out of 100, our representation was correct in that sense. So, people's views did change. So you as students, when you did this work, you did change people's attitudes towards crime. Now, this mission statement here, challenge common sense thinking, was what the assignment was about. This is what we'd like you as students to do. Challenge common sense thinking. Now, the common sense thinking about crime is, as you know, newspapers have a certain view on crime. Depending on what newspaper you read, depends on what your view on crime is likely to be. Because as it says there, 90% of the Daily Mail readers think that crime is on the increase, whereas only 62% of the Guardian readers do. So obviously it seems to be then reading a newspaper affects people's opinions about crime. Worse than that, regardless of whether it's a broadsheet newspaper or a tabloid newspaper, 20% of every single story in a newspaper is to do with crime. And out of that 20%, half of them are about homicide or violence. So is it any wonder why we have this thing called real crime? That's obvious. Real crime is homicide, it's violence. I've read about it in the newspapers. So like I say, you've got this kind of evidence there. Now, the work that your students did was talking about this kind of thing called unintended crime. Now, they said we showed that that these kind of things that take place at work or are not prosecuted in the same way that crimes on the street are. Street crime is real crime. Work-based crime, it's not real crime. Police investigations, it said they're far more common in the Star and Garter than they are in the lounges of the luxury hotels. Well, the end of the video showed that with Operation Finesse. If only we had an Operation Finesse in line for bankers and stuff like that, then we might not have ended up in the mess that we're in now. People tell us that work-related crimes should be treated differently because they're not intentional. That's the reason why they're treated. So it's right that they're treated differently, allegedly. However, many crimes don't require intention. Not all of them do. So, so that argument then sort of loses its weight. But we'd like to say, well, is it not more important to prevent harm? Whether it's intended or not, if we can prevent it, then surely that's what society should do. Now, what we do know about harm is a lot of it is based on different studies, and this particular study has done an in-depth research into the suicide rates across Europe for the last sort of 30 odd years or so. They found that unemployment and recession increases the numbers of deaths from suicide. The research published in the Lancet, in the Medical Professions Journal, shows that for every 1% increase in unemployment, you get a 0.79% increase in suicide. That is based on 37 years of research across Europe. So, we know that recession equals harm, but we don't look at it in the same way as we do, real crimes, real homicide, real violence. Yet, this thing kills. It's a different type of death, but it still kills. The deaths may